Now American Perspectives continues with a look at technology and the future. Author and software engineer Cliff Stoll shared his views on computers earlier this month in San Francisco. The Commonwealth Club of California hosted this hour-long event.
Thank you. Thank you much, Lee. Especially thanks to the Commonwealth Club for inviting me over here. I'm tickled to be here. I'm happy to have just taken the BART across from the East Bay, and with good luck, I'll speak from my outline, which is on my hand. Those of you who wish can just read it from over here, and you can leave early. In short, what I wanted to start by saying is as much as I'm considered a critic of the internet, as somebody who's down on it, I love computers. I think computers and networks are really neat. I've been using them for decades, since the mid-'60s, when I first key punched some Hollerith cards for an IBM 1620. I've been on the ARPANET since 1975. I've used PCs, Macintoshes, workstations, up and down the scale. I use them professionally in astronomy. I own 6 computers. It's not computers that bother me. No, I love computers. No, it's this culture of computing that gives me the heebie-jeebies. It's this idea that's going around the world that says, if you're not online, if you don't have your own website, if you don't have an email address, if you're not wired in, if you don't have your own customized domain name, then progress is taking place and you're being left back at the station. Seems to me that this underlying statement of computers are the future of civilization is so obvious, so clear, that no one is skeptical of it. Well, my background in physics says whenever there are obvious statements that everyone agrees upon, it's worth being skeptical, worth asking, is it so? And so what I'd like to talk about today are sort of skeptical questions that we in technology and computing just don't ask because, it's obviously true. And so on my finger, I'd like to just point out, hey, what are 4 things that are obviously true that everyone agrees upon, that simply are true about computers and networks and things? Well, speaking a little bit earlier to a couple of people in the audience, I scribbled down a few of them. First of all, that jobs in the future are guaranteed to be, they're going to be there for the computer literate. You're going to have to know computers in order to get a job in the future, and the best jobs will go to those who are most tuned into networks and things. As a corollary to that, it seems to me that it is important, essential, that our schools, that our educational institutions be wired, be hooked up, be connected, that we have the latest educational technology in the classroom. Because, and here's the third statement, information is power. Last summer, if you saw the movie The Net, over and over again, you kept hearing, information is power. This is clearly true, that anyone who has instant, fast information at their fingertips, hey, that's where power lies. And sort of as a corollary, or as a result of all this, it's important we can observe a revolution in different parts of our society. Things like libraries. There's a digital revolution going on, that the library of the future will be digital and information will be on disk. Strikes me that these 4 statements are almost obvious, or certainly are obvious to those of us, or those of you who are well tuned into what's coming down computing. Is it necessarily so? Hey, prove it to me. Jobs of the future, they're going to go to those people who have computer skills? Really? Let me just off the top of my head name a few jobs that I think are going to be here in 5 or 10 years. Jobs that I think are going to be here in 50 or 100 years. How about plumber? How about taxi cab driver? How about dentist? How about surgeon? How about a movie actress? How about a politician? Hey, these are jobs, careers. ranging from low-paying to high-paying, where you don't need to know any computing to do it. Hey, when I go to a dentist, what do I want the dentist to do? I want the dentist to be able to go bzzz and drill my teeth. I don't want somebody who's really good at writing HTML code who can go around and sit there on a computer program. No. For a dentist, I want somebody who's technically competent with teeth. Secondarily, it would be real handy, it'd be real nice if a dentist were also, able to make me feel at ease so that when I'm over in the dental chair, I don't feel so nervous and I feel that I'm in good hands. Tertiarily, you know, the dentist probably has to run an office. For that, oh yeah, he's going to have to, or she's going to have some kind of computer terminal there and know something of computing. But the primary skill of the dentist isn't computing, nor is that for a surgeon, nor is it for a politician. How about a bartender? Can you imagine a society 100 years from now without bartenders? I mean, what's the job of a bartender? Oh, it can be replaced with a computerized mix master, something that'll, you know, pour water and mix drinks automatically. Oh, come on. The job of a bartender is not to mix drinks, but to make people feel comfortable sitting at the bar. The job of a bartender is to listen. The job of a taxi cab driver is not to sit there at a keyboard, but to sit there at a steering wheel. Jobs of the future belong to those who know computing. Is this true? I listened through the 1960s and 1970s to people telling me, hey, if you want a good job, want a high-paying job, learn a lot of physics, particle physics if possible, high cutting-edge physics because, hey, there's lots of jobs in physics. Well, today, there's a lot of physicists with PhD degrees who are going unemployed. Might this be happening? Might this happen to those people that we know who are today dedicating their lives to computing? All over the place, you see these graphs showing the exponential growth of computers. Every year, there's a doubling. Every month, there's a doubling in net nodes or money spent in computers and software and things. Therefore, by extrapolation, you say, in the future, everyone's going to be wired and we'll all have to know computers. Ah, come on! Anyone who knows any biology immediately knows exponential curves can't continue forever. Sooner or later, this phenomenal growth in computing that's going zooming up like this is going to have to level off. Perhaps not only level off, it might drop off as people say, hey, I don't have to spend any more in computing. I've already got one that works quite well. Why do I need a new word processor today? Why do I have to spend another $5,000 on a computer? The one from 3 years ago works quite well, thank you. When that happens, the day that growth in computing no longer follows an exponential curve, people who have dedicated decades of their lives to learning computers, to programming them, to figuring out how to put new nodes on the World Wide Web, they may be stuck because their skills may be similar to the skills of, automakers in the late 60s who spent their time developing really cool ways to make big fins on cars only to discover that people were no longer buying a new car every 2 years. I'm concerned about this. Many of my friends are terrific computer programmers, but they don't know much else. As a corollary to this rage for jobs online, I have a note saying, hey, we've got to get schools online. We've got to get lots and lots of fast-moving, high-tech, glitzy computers into our classroom. That our school districts need to be high-tech. I wonder about that. Is it so? I saw a note earlier today. Somebody passed me a quotation from a famous American. Famous American. Okay, this is fill in the blank time, gang. Fill in the blanks. Figure out who said this. Famous American. Everyone knows his name. I believe that blank is destined to revolutionize education, and that within a few years, blank, will largely supplant, if not entirely replace, the textbook. Who said it? Who? Who? Bill Gates, the president of Microsoft? Do you think it was a person running IBM? Do you think this was a high-tech pioneer? No, it was Thomas Alva Edison, 1922. The true quote from Edison is, "I believe that the motion picture is destined to revolutionize education, and that within a few years, movies will largely supplant, if not entirely replace, textbooks." Hey, 1922, high tech. I remember, just like I suspect many of you do, going to school. Well, hey, I went to Buffalo Public School 61, which was high tech in 1965. We had film strips. This was the high tech, the really cool stuff of the mid-60s, film strips. Remember film strips and educational videos? Every Wednesday at 1 o'clock was film strip hour, and we'd get to watch our film strips. It was going to be really dynamite because all of the kids in the classroom looked forward to Wednesday afternoons. 1 o'clock would run around, right? And we'd all look forward to the clock, and then the lights would get dark, the teacher would stand in the back of the room, the film strip machine would start, and every 15 seconds it would go beep, and we would shift our minds, go zip, and shift our minds into neutral. For the next hour, we didn't have to think. We loved film strips as students because it's entertainment. The teachers loved these film strips. For an hour every week, they just sat in the back of the room, arms folded, and just advanced the slide projector every time it beeped. Principals loved it. It showed that they were running a high-tech school. Parents loved it because they thought, hey, they're getting the best education possible. School boards loved them. They were cheap. But no learning took place. Question for you. Each of you have seen hundreds of film strips and instructional videos and educational videos. Name the titles of 3 of them. Now, name 3 teachers who have been important in your life. Okay, name a half dozen. What's the most important thing in a classroom? A good teacher and some motivated students. And anything that comes between them, whether it's a film strip, an instructional video, a CD-ROM, an internet network feed, a multimedia display, anything that separates a teacher from a student is probably great for entertainment, but is dubiously of any value in learning. Hey, I might have it all wrong. Again, I love computers. But where do I learn from? I learn from teachers. Seems to me that we're promoting computers as a great way to get rid of textbooks, as a terrific way to modernize our classroom, as a fantastic way of making our educational system revolutionized. For 5,000 years we've been trying to do this, gang, and we've never succeeded. There is no substitute for a good teacher. Oh, but you say, hey, wouldn't it be better to have a CD-ROM and a computer system rather than a mediocre teacher? Well, maybe. Maybe. But might it not be better to give our teachers a lot of support? Maybe our classrooms, rather than needing computers in them, it might be handier to put a copying machine in each classroom so a teacher can make assignments available to students. Maybe instead of putting a $2,000 multimedia display in every classroom, it might be better to simply say, from now on, teachers are not going to be interrupted during class time with stupid memos from the administration so that the students pay attention to the teachers. Maybe instead of spending huge amounts of money on multimedia systems, we should be spending a modest amount of money paying teachers a decent wage and reducing the size of the classroom. This is way more obvious to you than it is to me. Hey, look, they don't let me teach undergraduates hardly. So I don't know how to put it in more clear terms. There is no easy solution. However, I encourage you to run down to your local software store and buy some cool software. Buy some of this wonderful edutainment software. Get some of these floppy disks and plug them in your home computer and see how they work. When you go down to the software shop, read the outside of the label. Read the outside of the shrink-wrap label on all of this edutainment software, the stuff that you buy in the software store. There's a wonderful label on the shrink-wrap. One after another, in one form or another, you see this wonderful sign on the outside of the computers, on the outside of the computer software, and it says, "This will make learning fun." That's the object of a lot of today's, much of, perhaps almost all of today's educational software, to make learning fun. Am I the only one in the world who does not believe that learning isn't fun? Learning isn't supposed to be fun. Learning is work. It takes discipline. It takes commitment. Learning takes responsibility. Learning means doing your homework. Learning means reading books, reading textbooks, thinking, discussing problems with teachers. Learning is work. It takes a commitment between teacher and student and parent and teacher. Learning isn't fun. The big payoff that you get, though, is an understanding, is a sense of, wow, I see what they're trying to get. I know what this is about. The payoff is not, oh, I shot down 3 more Martians today. The payoff is not the instant gratification that you get off figuring out the game in a CD-ROM. No, it's a very delayed gratification that may take years or even a decade. 2 decades if you go to graduate school. And I'm sorry to say, there's no easy way. As much as you, I yearn for a magic, instant way of solving educational problems. I'm sorry, there's no work-free way. I yearn for that icon that I can click on that will make me smart, that will be an entertaining way of learning everything. There's no way. I'm sorry, surfing the web is a wonderful, entertaining experience, but it's not education for all the things that you say. Ah, I saw this cool website that it had something to do with history of Antarctica. Merely seeing something on a video screen, whether it's from your computer, your videotape, or a television show, is different from learning under a committed, inspired teacher. To me, this is, maybe I got it all wrong again. Check me. Be skeptical of what I say, just as you should be skeptical of the claims of those people who would promote computers as a panacea, as a solution for many, if not all, of our social problems. Why is it that computers are pressed so heavily in society? One reason is, hey, information is power. Information is power. Of course, this is a corruption of what Francis Bacon said 500 years ago, namely that knowledge is power, but I'll let it stand. Information is power. Therefore, the information highway is a terrific way to empower all of us, to empower people to get things on the internet, get great, cool stuff, get neat information from these online services, and therefore you'll be empowered. Oh, come on. Information isn't power. Who in your neighborhood has the most information? Librarians do. And they're famous for having no power. Who's got the most power in your neighborhood? Politicians do. And they are equally famous for being ill-informed. Information is power. Therefore, we're building the national information infrastructure and the information highway. What the internet delivers, I'm sorry to say, gang, is not information. The internet delivers a terrific amount of data. Data as most of you, as everyone knows, is bits and bytes and numbers and words. The internet is a terrific way to deliver over TCP, IP, and many other protocols, lots and lots of data. But data is not information. Unlike data, information has content. It has context. Information, unlike data, has accuracy, has precision. It has a pedigree. You know who wrote it. You know where it came from. Unlike data, information has timeliness. You know that it's there when you need it, and it is not just on time, but you know the date and time when it was created. You know who it came from. You know whether it's reliable or not. You know if it's robust. Most of all, information, unlike data, is useful. The internet delivers lots of data. How much of that is useful, timely, necessary information? Not a whole lot. Look across the World Wide Web tonight. Log in, download some stuff. You'll find that it's a huge, huge continent filled with press releases, boring government documents, blitzed up with a little bit of multimedia squibs here and there, lots of pictures of people's dogs, but how much of this is actually essential or even useful information? Maybe to you, a whole lot of it is. Maybe not. But although there's a long distance between information and data, there's a wide, wide gulf between information and what I think we should be seeking, namely knowledge. Information may tell you the right answer. You know, is the correct answer A, B, C, D, E? What's the distance from the sun to the moon? 8 miles, 93 miles, 93,000 miles, 93 million miles, 93 trillion miles. Hey, with the right information, you can answer that question. And if you're taking the right test, people will certify you as being smart in astronomy. Well, I'm sorry, that's not astronomy. The good astronomy problems don't have much to do with what's the distance to the sun, how many miles is it? Rather, how do we know that distance? Do you know what the precision is to that number? Are you aware of how this was derived? How does that distance from Earth to Sun change, and how does that affect the climate? To answer those questions, you need understanding. Understanding, unlike information, does not deliver, immediate gratification. It's something that takes a long time and does not uniformly show up on SAT questions. In fact, all these multiple choice tests, as you know, never test the understanding. Rather, they test whether a student has memorized and has figured out how to answer multiple choice tests. Anyways, hey, what turns the cranks in my mind is not data, it's not information. What turns the little gears up here is ideas. Beyond that, wait a second, what am I talking about? Why are we so in love with information and data? As long of a distance from information to data and from information to knowledge, there's a long, long ocean between knowledge and wisdom. I'm sad to say that much as I've sought it, I haven't touched it. And I'm very sorry to report that within the computer community, after you pass age 35, if you're not in sales or management, you're booted out. Where are the wise elders in computing? Where are the people who are 50 years old that we can appeal to and say, hey, I've got a tough programming problem, help me? Oftentimes they have been marginalized because, hey, if you're over 40 in computing, who are you anymore? You're not important there. Wisdom is not something you can download from an FTP site. It's not something you'll find on the World Wide Web. I'm sorry to say wisdom is something that you can only gain through experience, maturity, time, judgment, again, experience, and hard work. Sorry, gang, there's no shortcut. There's no icon that you can click on. There's no entry on your hot list that will say, make me wise. I wish. I yearn for it. There's no shortcut. Information is power. No, I don't believe it. I have on my finger a note. How much time do I have? When should I stop? I have 5 more minutes? I have a note saying I wanted to mention the 3 laws of plumbing, namely that water runs downhill, keep your fingers out of your mouth, and payday's on Friday. All around the San Francisco Bay Area, I can hire a computer programmer for, 50 or 60 bucks to write HTML code, to write C++, object-oriented things. That's quite a bit. The other day, I needed to hire a plumber. A plumber cost $120 an hour. Why? Because every school district in the San Francisco Bay Area teaches computing in one form or another. Essentially, every high school has computing in it. Not one, 0, teaches plumbing. 30 years from now, will we need all of these computer programmers? Or might it be that we will still need plumbers? You laugh, but when we denigrate one skill and praise another, it says something about where our values are in society. I haven't much time. I'll quickly go through what I feel is the devastation of an important social institution, namely the library. Your neighborhood library is under attack. It's under attack directly from the computers that I love and value and cherish. How is this happening? The upcoming digital library revolution. Get rid of card catalogs. Get rid of books. Get rid of librarians, because you'll be able to get all the data, all the information that you need, not from books, not from bookshelves, not from old-fashioned card catalogs, but directly over the internet. Come on, gang. Stop somebody on the street tomorrow and say, what do you want in a library? They'll probably scratch their head and say, oh, my library, I'd sure like it if there were lots of books. Magazines. It'd be really cool if there were good newspapers. A good librarian. Current newspapers. It'd be real handy if we had sort of story hours on Saturday morning. How many people are breaking down the doors of the library saying, I want lots of CD-ROMs. I need multimedia displays, and I've got to have an internet feed in my local library. Well, most of the people who are telling me this are my friends, are my propeller head friends, who already have computers in their home and feel that, hey, we've got to get everybody online. I wonder, is this a wise way for us to invest our very few dollars in our community library system? Year after year, the amount of money devoted to books and library acquisitions is going down all across the continent. The amount of money being spent on CD-ROMs and network access in computers and libraries is going up. What's wrong with this picture? People want books and librarians in long hours and evening hours. Instead, we're delivering CD-ROMs, modems, and network feeds. Don't ask me, but I wish somebody would look at this more carefully. I wanted also to, I've got just a couple minutes. On my last finger, I thought I'd mention all truth, since it's worth saying something truthful for once in a while. This has nothing to do with my talk at all, but kind of has a whole lot to do with my talk. It was in the early 1970s that I was an undergraduate at the State University of New York at Buffalo. University of Buffalo. I was a physics major. I'm studying physics and doing cool things like Schrodinger's equations and quantum mechanics and stat mech and things like this. And it was a gas. It was neat. And I'm up late studying at Hochstetter Hall and reading books, and there's a riot going on. This was the days of the student riots. Remember in the early 70s, people throwing bricks and stuff? And protesting wars and weird things like this. So I'm there. I walk out of the physics department carrying a notebook. It's 10 o'clock at night. And there's some police, and there's some students throwing bricks and shooting tear gas. This policeman comes up to me with a gun, and he shoots a tear gas grenade right in front of me. It goes whoosh, and I say, I'm just a physics student. I'm a scientist. I don't have anything to do with this protest. And made no difference. He comes chasing after me, using this thing as a billy club. He's chasing after me. So I go tearing off to try to escape. I go running off into Hayes Hall, which is the administration building on campus. It's one of these bell towers, you know, these old Federalist buildings that shaped like a birthday cake, and at the top there's some clocks and some bells. So I go running up, dodge out of this. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I here? What's going on? And I head up to the top. There's a clock on the top. There's a clock on top of the building, and And I go climbing up this rickety old ladder. Policeman's long lost me. It's 10 at night. I climb up this ladder. There's this old brass pendulum clock. Tick, tick, tick. 1 meter long pendulum. I go climbing up there. I see this clock, and it goes up through a broomstick, and there's a differential gear driving the 4 different clocks. I keep climbing up this ladder to the top, and there's some bells. There are these 4 bells, and they're chiming every quarter hour. Quarter hour, this little hammer goes bong, bong, bong. You've heard these things. I'm up there. I look out. It's 10:30 at night. There's chicken wire surrounding the bells. I'm looking down. Down there, there's police shooting tear gas at students, throwing rocks at the cops. What am I doing here? And all I want to do is study physics and science. And I look at these bells, and I remember what an English teacher taught me a long time ago, namely that these bells oftentimes have inscriptions on them. People inscribe messages on these big bells. And so I took my jacket and rubbed off the pigeon dung from one of the bells. I saw the inscription. And so I'll close with the inscription on the Hayes Hall Tower bells at the University of Buffalo. All truth is one. In this light, may science and religion endeavor here for the steady evolution of mankind. From darkness to light, from narrowness to broad-mindedness, from prejudice to tolerance. It is the voice of life which calls you. Come and learn. Thank you. Don't ask me the outstanding ones, ask me the inferior ones. Easier to answer.
Okay. Having built a case against the dominant computer in the classroom, how would you develop a curriculum for computer use for students? At what level would you bring it into the classroom?
How much computing does somebody need to know? Hey, graduate from high school? I expect most high school students will sooner or later figure out a bit of word processing, enough to write a resume or write a letter on a computer. You ought to know word processing. You should know a little bit of how to do a spreadsheet. Maybe not create one, but how to use one, what it's used for, what a database does, how to extract information from it, how to put it in. It'd be kind of handy to know communication skills, how to log into the internet, how to download something, what the nature of creating a web page is online. These are skills. Well, how long does it take to learn a word processor? The better part of a week? Maybe half a week? How long does it take to become somewhat, at a surface, familiar with the World Wide Web? Oh, maybe several hours. These are not tough things to teach. Rather, they are pretty simple things that fall in the category sort of like driver's ed. I mean, a good point is, a lot of the computer folks say, hey, look, because the computer will be at the center of our civilization soon, we must bring the computer into the classroom. What if somebody said in 1950 that because the automobile will be at the center of our civilization, we should bring a car into all parts of our life, our educational life? For example, we gotta teach how the history of the car. We've got to make sure everyone knows how to tune a carburetor. We've got to, and art, and we have to draw pictures of cars. Music, we ought to, generate music that has to do with the thumping of these motors going back and forth. By centering your educational system around one particular technological device, whether it's a movie, a television, a video, tape, an automobile, or a computer, you exclude important aspects of education. Let me just realized, I shouldn't point at you. Go to a school district that's talking about how they're having real high-tech stuff and ask them, where are these high-tech computer labs located? What did they used to be? I did that experiment, and I found out that the computer lab in a high school used to be the art studio. We don't teach art here anymore. We teach computers. Another place said, oh yeah, instead of teaching music and having a band, we have a computer lab. Go into a school library and find out which is more current, their book collection or their software collection. Why have a school librarian when somebody can log into the web and do all their searches using Alta Vista or a World Wide Web search engine? To me, this is a statement about what we value in society. Again, I can only say, I love computers. I use them. It's this culture of computing that makes me real uneasy. It's not, oh, I want to take this computer and heave it out the window. No, those are the questions? Hey, give me new questions. The problem is not, I want to get rid of computers. No, I am not anti-technology. Rather, I want people to ask skeptical questions.
Okay, here's a skeptical question. What about not having the computer in the classroom to learn how to use the computer, but to access the internet, to get into the newspapers from around the world and use reliable resources? I mean, not everything on the internet is unreliable. I mean, there are Fortune 500 companies that have websites that have good information. The newspapers are on the web.
Of course.
I'm not saying just for the commercial aspects. I'm saying there are nonprofit agencies like the Commonwealth Club that have a website that are...
Question for you.
Okay.
Question.
Okay.
Which would a student get more out of? Coming to the Commonwealth Club live and in person, not just watching this on a video, but coming to the Commonwealth Club and looking around saying, oh, look, I can look at Market Street down there and there's a bus going by. I can rub shoulders with important people. I can get the sense of somebody giving a real live lecture and thinking things through, or I can click on an icon and get, oh, some kind of transcript or an overview or a promise of this is what's coming up in the Commonwealth Club next month. What shows up of all these Fortune 500 companies online typically are their press releases. Go look at them.
I know that.
You know about this, so why? I'm
just asking you. You're not saying that it's mutually exclusive. I mean, you know, you either have the internet or you don't. I mean, certainly there's a way for us to function together with the internet. It's here.
Classrooms.
It's not going away.
Ask the teacher. I mean, some teachers will say, look, I need internet feeds. It's important to get this stuff. Many teachers will say, I've got all of the newspapers and the resources I need. I've got tons of that stuff. The question is, how do I use it? How do I integrate it into my class? Or how do I solve problems of inspiring kids to actually go and do research? After all, what good is all this glitzy technology to a child who cannot write analytically, who won't read anything more than 24 lines by 80 columns across, whose idea of mathematics is that, I don't need to know that because we have computers. To me, what I want to see a child doing, and maybe I'm all wrong, maybe I'm a throwback to a century ago, seems to me that a child ought to be spending time reading, and try reading logged on to the internet. Someday, put up a 5-page or even a 10-page memo on your computer and try reading 10 pages of text. It's hard to do. Children don't like it.
You'll wind up printing it out.
Yeah, you'll wind up printing it out and reading it on paper. If you read it, and children, hey, they learn, hey, I don't have to read this. I'll get the first paragraph and that's enough.
What are the applications you use the computer for in your life? Which of these applications, if any, would you be able to do better if you had to do it another way?
I'm professionally an astronomer. I do planetary physics. In the field of astronomy, lots of people send email to one another. Hey, you got to go observing with me on this date and that. Sort of minor stuff that you might use a telephone or a fax for. But it turns out that a telephone and a fax almost always provide better communication than email does. Not always, but often. Namely, when you talk to somebody on the telephone, you have a sense of trust. You have a sense of interpersonal interaction. When I use email, I'm well aware that I am missing out on something very important. Namely, oh, a tone of voice, a sense of, are they desperate? Is it something back burner? I also miss out on friendships. I do use email. I get a surprising amount of email, so much that I can't answer it all. I'm sorry to say that for all the email that I get, I answer probably 1 letter in 20, if that. I feel guilty when I see it, but hey, there's not enough me to answer all of my email. Mailing lists come from all around the globe, sending me all sorts of announcements, but for all the mailing lists I'm on, the best information that I get happens over a cup of coffee at a coffee shop down the block in Berkeley, where a friend will come by and tell me what's happening. For all the hours that I spend on the World Wide Web, for all the time that I spend logged in, prowling, surfing, wow, I get a lot better feelings, a lot more out of walking with a friend down the street and chatting. And for those of you who are World Wide Web addicts and really like homepages, I'll mention to you the neatest homepage I've seen is located about 5 blocks away from my house. I went and visited an elder hostel where some people who were 75 and 80 years old were trying to walk around and getting around in wheelchairs. I brought my 1-year-old daughter there, and these people were delighted to see her. They thought this was the neatest thing, and my daughter was happy to meet these relative strangers located just around the corner in my neighborhood. I'll remember that far longer. I'll remember the experience of chatting with a man who told me his experiences running a bar, running a speakeasy during the early Depression and during Prohibition. I'll remember that way longer than any other homepage on the World Wide Web. That's something you can't capture on a computer. I've avoided your question. What things do I use it for? Hey, I keep my address book on a computer. I keep telephone numbers on a computer. When I write, I use a word processor. I also use a typewriter. I also use sheets of paper. All 3 are handy. I find when I use a word processor, I write much faster, more words. When I use a typewriter, though, I write much better. My writing is much more crisp and tight and disciplined. When I write longhand, I find that, oh, I'm telling stories about people. I'm writing about friends. And for all the email that I use, the most important people in my life, the most important person in my life, my mother, I can't reach her over the internet. Try as I've wanted. She doesn't have an email address because she won't use a computer. We think that the internet reaches so many people around the continent. Well, it reaches about 10% of the people in North America. But a postcard will reach 100% of everyone, not just in North America, but around the world. What a useful tool, a handwritten postcard. Yet, hey, people prefer to use email. Hey, I can't blame them. Please.
Would you, if you were advising a young person, recommend studying in the fields of high technology?
Would I study in high technology?
Would you recommend?
If this person had a real, hey, like to take things apart, like to put things together, like to assemble things, hey, go right ahead.
Be a plumber.
Be a plumber for that matter. My feeling is if somebody really just loves dealing in Boolean logic and assembling logical things, go right ahead. If your idea is, hey, I really like building glitzy graphics, go ahead. Get into high tech, get into multimedia systems. Lots of people are. Lots and lots of people are. On the other hand, it is equally respectable to go out and become a carpenter, to study the history of Japan. It's equally respectable, if not as high paying, to be out as a making a good restaurant, coming up with new recipes that people will flock to. These are orthogonal directions to move in. If the person really loves it, go right ahead. But if the driving force is, I want a job, I want a high-paying job, I know that the world's most richest, the world's richest people. Hey, the billionaires of our age all make their money in software, and I want to become a billionaire. I'd shrug and say, hey, you're asking the wrong question of the wrong person.
I don't know if you're going to answer this question, but much of your presentation has to do with the internet, but most of us are using computers for other things outside of the internet. How do you feel about just the computer for use in our everyday lives, such as auto diagnostics, retail scanning, and record keeping?
May I answer it?
Yes, please.
I had a physics professor who once told me, you can divide the whole world into two types of people. Those who like to divide the world into two types of people and those that don't. I'm one of those people I'm one of those types of people. I'm not sure which, but for a moment, just for a minute, let me divide the world into two types of people. Those who love computers. Those who just really get off on computers and think they're terrific. I'm one of them. These are the people, hey, we're the computer jocks, right? We love computers. There's also people over here who hate computers. They deal with them every day, but they don't like them. These are the people, I mean, you know a lot of these people. Well, I know it's really a full spectrum like this. But for a moment, let me digitally divide the world like this. Now, given this, what do we call these people over here? They love computers. We call them computer jocks, wizards, gurus. We also call them employed. I used to work a help desk. People would call me up on the phone and say, help, help, Cliff. How do I change the margins? I'd say, oh, it's real easy. Step one, grab the mouse, right? Reach for the mouse, and with the mouse, step two, reach over and move the cursor so it's sitting on the format menu. Step three, push the mouse button down, move it like this until it lands on the paragraph. Let go of the mouse, type in the width. Step 5 will be type OK, and step 6 is continue typing. As the guy running the help desk, this was a lot of fun. It worked out great. Never had a problem with it, except when one of these people over here would call me up. They'd say, help, help, Cliff, I want to change a margin. I'd say, it's real easy. Step 1, reach for the mouse. Step 2, step 3. They had a tough time of it because I'd get to step 4 and they'd say, no, 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 you don't understand. I don't want a list of rules and steps. All I want to do is change the margins. I'd say, oh, here's the steps that you do. And they say, no, 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 no. I don't want a system of steps and rules. I just want to change the margins. They're like talking across one another. There was this classic impedance mismatch. I'm thinking about this and I'm saying, wait a second. How do I divide the world up like this? What's the characteristic that separates those who love computers and those that can't get along with them? The ability to follow rules. The ability to figure out and follow somebody else's rule book. Those of us who are real good at following somebody else's rule book and figure out those rules well. Those of us who know how to grok a rule book created by a group of people up in Redmond, Washington. We get employed. We get paid. Those people over there who can't figure out somebody else's rule book, what do you call them? Hey, go over to the bookstore down there and go to the computer section. You'll find DOS for Dummies, The Idiot's Guide to the Internet. These people walk out of a bookstore with a big sign over their head saying, I am a moron, because they're not nimble on the keyboard. Right? These are people who, you call them dummies, morons, idiots, dummies. You also call them unemployed. Let me finish this with what I think is the important point. Namely, when you divide the world up like this, these people who are the computer wizards, the propeller heads, the people who are really good at figuring out somebody else's rules, what do you call them? You call them bureaucrats. You call them droids. You call them sort of rule followers. What do you call somebody who can't follow somebody else's rules? These are the original thinkers. Because what is creativity except the inability to follow somebody else's rules? What is creativity? What is What do we want in society? What we need in society are people who think. The way these people get along in life is by when they come to a wall, instead of following somebody else's rules for getting around it, instead of taking the way that somebody else programmed them, they walk around their own way. They create their own solutions, which is the nature of creative thinking. What do we, as computer jocks, do to them? We marginalize them. We call them dummies and idiots. The question is, what about areas of work where computers can be used or they might not be used? My comment is, people who are frustrated with computers and want to heave the things out the window, oftentimes there's not only nothing wrong with them, but the way they think, the nature of their thought process is oftentimes antithetical to the way that we, as technology lovers, build our programs.
Okay, well, we have time for one last question. And it's a two-part question. How do you envision the internet and our use of the internet over the next 2-3 years? And what changes would you like to see incorporated?
I'm a physicist. To me, that means I'm fairly good, or at least I ought to be fairly good at describing reality. It does not mean that I'm any good at predicting the future. One thing that bugs me a little bit is how whenever we want to predict the future, we ask computer jocks. Why don't we ask a historian? Why don't we ask a linguist? Why don't we ask somebody who writes books like The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, which perhaps is a better prediction of what will happen in our civilization than anything that you will hear from people who are writing code for the internet. I don't know. Maybe I'm all wrong on this, but I suspect that asking the inventor of the automobile or the inventor of the light bulb what the future of civilization will be will give you a technical answer, but that might not be a satisfactory prediction of what's going to come down. Perhaps we are better asking a sociologist, a historian, someone with a humanistic background, rather than computer jocks, who, I suspect, like myself and other bitheads, really love the things that one can do with a computer and are able to see that we can do really neat, cool things with them, but are perhaps not very good at seeing how this fits into society. Have I dodged your question well enough?
Do you want any changes? I don't know. If you had your chance
If I
to
had to
make
change
changes.
the internet?
Yeah.
Happily, I've been online since 1974. On the early ARPANET, I've watched it change. I've helped it change. I look forward to the day when it gets into every town and trailer court across the nation, around the world. If there's a change, I hope it's that people will begin to ask skeptical questions, tough questions, of this wonderful technology. And as we understand its effects upon our country and our society better, begin to challenge whether this is any form of panacea or whether it may be much like the automobile and our love affair with highways of the early 50s. And because I've already run over time, I'll embarrass you further by running over further. Consider, we're talking about the national information infrastructure, sometimes the global information infrastructure. Consider the earlier parallel to that, the interstate highway system of late 40s, early 50s. It was sold, it was promoted in the late 40s as a terrific device for defense. The interstate highway system would be great for defense because it would allow tanks and trucks and troop carriers to go from the Atlantic to the Pacific in 2 days. It would make a stronger country. It would make a better country because it would help out our cities by getting products from our cities out to other markets quickly and effectively. It will be good for our country because it will break the backbone of the railroads and get rid of the railroad monopoly. The interstate highway system would be good for the economy because, hey, what's good for GM is good for the country. It will make more cars. It'll be good for farmers because it'll allow farmers' produce to get into the cities quickly. It'll be great for our nation because it'll make us stronger. All of those things came true. It'll be good for our society because it'll allow people to quickly get from one place to another. It'll be good for business. It'll be good for just getting together because I'll be able to visit my cousin quickly by driving there. All those predictions came true over the past 50 years. Or did they? Because of our love affair with the internal combustion engine, we have become profoundly dependent upon oil, so much so that we went to war for a minor power in the Middle East. Does this make us a more independent country? Would we have done so if we weren't so dependent upon cars? Has the interstate highway system been great for farmers? Heck no! Ma and pa farms are pretty much out of business. You can't compete with agribusinesses now that you have to deliver truckloads of produce rather than just backyards of produce. Mother and father family farms have been hurt terribly by our love affair with the interstate highway system. Almost done.
I'm not rushing.
We have also, look at what's happened to our cities. Look at the cities in the Northeast, the Rust Belt. People, rather than living in their communities, in their cities, have all moved out to the burbs. What's happened to the old communities? They're gone. People live in the suburbs where they don't know one another. The effect of the interstate highway system on the family has been to make, instead of bringing us closer to our relatives, closer to one another, they've distanced us from one another. All of these predictions for the interstate highway system came true. In another sense, they all came false. Who asked skeptical questions in 1952? Who stood up and said, are these predictions valid? Or might it be that this highway system, that this wonderful infrastructure, might undercut the very values that we have in our society? Who in 1952 stood up and said, look, this interstate highway system will utterly destroy and devastate the Burma Shave sign? Who asked those skeptical questions? Nobody did. In turn, I feel it's time to ask similar questions of a similar infrastructure that's being built today, that billions of dollars are being poured into. I wish that I were not the person to ask this. I stand to make big dollars by hooking up like everybody else who knows how to handle IP addresses. I'm really good at writing HTML code. I'd love to do it. If I want to make money, I go online. But I think there's something more important, which is to challenge the accepted statements that the information infrastructure necessarily is good for society.
Thank you very much, Clifford Stoll. Thank you for joining us.
Ron, thank you. Thank you very much.
The meeting is now adjourned. What a presentation.
American Perspectives continues in a minute with David Brinkley of ABC News. Tomorrow at 7 and 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, Road to the White House. Elizabeth Dole visits with Republicans in San Diego. Also this week, a look at historic campaign ads in presidential politics.